Hello, today we're talking about two products, the Vlizoline Decovil 1 and the Vlizoline Decovil 1 Lite. Both come on a roll that are 90 centimetres wide, they are both fusible and they have a leather-like feel to them. Now the Decovil 1 is the heavier product and the Decovil 1 Lite is slightly lighter. The Decovil 1 can be sewn on the machine and the Decovil Lite can be sewn by hand and also by machine. Both the Vlizoline Decovil 1 and the Vlizoline Decovil 1 Lite are tear resistant. They are resistant to bending. They give structure. They're perfect to use to create boxes, to create bags, to create any home decor projects. Both the Vlizoline Decovil 1 and the Decovil 1 Lite are also ideal in garment making. If you want some 3D structure to something, if you want a peak and a cap, then they are the perfect product. Because of the neutral colour, you can also use it in garment making. It's ideal to create structure, whether that be in hats, belts, you could create costumes. Both the Vlizoline Decovil 1 and Decovil Lite have a smooth side, which is the leather side, and on the reverse, the shiny side is the fusible side. With regards to the Decovil 1 and the Decovil 1 Lite, when you are going to prepare your samples, it's really important to think about your project. I prefer not to have these particular items within my seam allowance, and so therefore, if I had a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I would make sure that my piece of Decovil 1 or Decovil 1 Lite was 1/2 inch smaller. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to iron them both on at the same time. Remember that the Decovil 1 is the heavier interfacing and the Decovil Lite is the lighter one. Now, when you look at them, the non-fusible side is smooth, it feels like leather. And if you look on the reverse, and sometimes you've just got to catch it in the light, it's shiny and it has a little bit of a glisten to it. And that is the fusible side. The fusible side is going to be placed onto the reverse of your fabric, and remember, keep it within your seam allowance. So we've placed the Decovil 1 and the Decovil Lite within the seam allowance, and you're going to place a damp cloth on top. Place your iron on top of the damp cloth, and you're going to leave the iron in position and then remove it. It takes about 6 seconds for the glue to activate and heat up and to fuse onto the reverse of your fabric. Now this is a really quite interesting experiment because you'll see an enormous difference when the two products are fused onto the fabric, in so much as the Decovil 1 is the heavier one and will keep the fabric a little bit stiffer. It'll give it more rigidity, so it's ideal for boxes if you want a bag with shape, if you want a bag with a 3D effect or a project with a 3D effect. And the Decovil Lite is obviously lighter and it'll still allow a little bit of flexibility, although it will retain the shape in your project. Now the really important thing to do when you fuse this on, and you just need to take your time, is to leave it for at least 30 minutes before you start handling the fabric. If you don't leave it for 30 minutes, then you're going to affect how it adheres to the fabric. Now here's one that we've done earlier, just to show you. This one has the Decovil 1 on the reverse, and this fabric has the Decovil Lite. And when you look at the two together, you can see there's more rigidity in the Decovil 1 and less in the Decovil 1 Lite. Once you've allowed the Decovil 1 to rest for at least 30 minutes, it's now ready to use in one of your sewing projects. I'm actually going to show you how easy it is to sew through 2 layers. And therefore, I'm going to put the fabrics like this, and I'm actually going to sew on the top. I've increased the stitch length to 3 on the sewing machine. And I'm just going to show you this top stitching, embellishing, decorative stitching. You'll see that it goes through that sewing machine, no problem at all. I would recommend that you increase the stitch length to 3 and use a nice universal needle, probably about a 90, or a quilting needle 90. Once you've allowed the Decovil 1 Lite to rest for at least 30 minutes, it's absolutely brilliant for bag making. So I've just popped it together with another fabric, right sides together. I have the walking foot on, and I am just sewing down 3 sides. Now you don't need the walking foot on for the Decovil One Light, because it is a lighter fabric. It'll glide through your machine no problem at all. And the other thing is, whilst I'm actually sewing this, and remember that I cut the Decovil One Light slightly smaller than my project because I didn't want the Decovil One Light to be in my seam allowance. You can still stitch through the Decovil One Light if you wanted to do any top stitching or decorative stitching when you've finished. So I'm just going to pop that up there. So I've just sewn around 3 sides, and then I'll just trim away this excess here. And if you have pinking scissors, they're really great to use. Saves cutting and clipping into curves as well. So just cut up there. And then if you've cut the corners of your project, just turn it through. And remember, I've only put the Decovil on one side just so you can see the difference between having a piece of fabric that has Decovil on, so that's going to give it that lovely structure. It has that lovely leather-like feel to it. And on the reverse of this little pouch, there is no Decovil. So you can see there, you've got your Decovil. You can see it's retained some structure. And here, the fabric is just as it is. There's no structure in there. So it gives you a lovely alternative. As you can see, Vlizoline has a wide range of products, each with different properties and benefits for your projects. You can view the whole range on the Vlizoline website, where you can download the brochure, which has detailed information on all of the products across our 4 categories. You can also join the conversation with us on our Facebook page, Creative Community Group and Instagram. All of the details are below.